Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Lee Camp. I'm joined by the always amazing Eleanor Goldfield. And when we left off, Eleanor, you were laughing hysterically and unable to breathe. That was the last episode. So we'll just start off there. We'll just keep going from there. We got a lot of news to cover. We're going to go through some of the DOGE or many of the DOGE firings and discuss whether it is the catastrophe that liberal America is making it out to be, or is there some nuance? Could there be some nuance to some of it? Even while Elon Musk and Donald Trump are disgusting pieces of human garbage. But we also got some excellent, important, I won't say excellent, important news about DEI, about ICE raids. It's all coming your way right now. And today is the premiere of Unredacted Tonight, which I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about. So, Unredacted Tonight will air tonight. I know a lot of people. I've not told the time yet. I only started saying the time yesterday. 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific tonight. All right, I'll talk more about that later. But
12 a.m. London.
Look at you! You just did that in your head, didn't you? I'm impressed. Or did you get it?
Well, obviously I had to do it in my head. Otherwise, I would have been like scribbling something, and I didn't. So, ergo, Latin, I did it in my head.
So that was another way of saying yes. Okay. Here we go to, I'm going to start with these DOGE firings. Thank you, Philip, for gifting memberships to people. Very kind of you to support the show. I'm going to start with these DOGE firings and going through some of them. And so you've got right-wing America acting like this is the best thing that's ever happened. You've got liberal America acting like the federal government in the United States is being shredded. And I think the truth is somewhere in between. So I wanted to go through some of these. Some of them are pretty horrific. Some of them don't seem to be nearly as awful as everybody's making it out to be. Department of Veterans Affairs. The Department of Veteran Affairs announced the dismissal of more than 1,000 employees who have served for less than 2 years. According to one senator, that included researchers working on cancer treatments, opioid addiction, prosthetics, and burn pit exposure. That sounds like a good lot to fire. They're not needed. Don't need to worry about, figuring out how to deal with veterans who faced burn pit exposure.
Support our troops. But
this is also what happens when you just paint with such a ridiculously broad brush. They're just firing people. None of Trump, Musk, none of them are looking into like what these people actually do.
Well, it's not like they'd care if they did.
That's what I mean, because they don't care. Education department, which is a department they want to gut. At least 39 people have been fired so far, including special education specialists, student aid officials, according to the union. There have also been $900 million in cuts to the Department Institute of Education Services, which tracks the progress of American students. It's unclear to what degree the Institute will continue to exist.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think American students are progressing because our education system is in the shitter. So, to be fair, I don't think there's anything to report there.
Right. So here's some of the nuance I was talking about. Is tracking the progress of American children important? Yes. Do American students seem to be progressing because we're tracking what they're doing? No. So.
Right. I think it would be more, it's kind of like if you got rid of the committee that suggests a bunch of things to do about climate change that we've been ignoring since forever. Are you like, okay, but we weren't using that anyway, so should we really be paying for it? It doesn't really make much sense. This is, again, like the ripping off of the facade, not so much a changing of the system, but a revealing. We didn't give a damn about our students to begin with. So the idea, and I'm not saying that the people who work at this institution don't care about students. I'm sure a lot of them do. But my point is, we weren't putting any money into educating our kids anyway. So the idea that we would put all of this money into tracking that total lack of care is kind of ironic. It's kind of silly. So I'm not suggesting that it's a good thing to just rip money from all of these places. But again, what they're doing is really just revealing, hey, we didn't give a damn about those kids anyway. So
And then another level of the nuance that no one wants to talk about is a lot of what our education system is meant to do is indoctrinate children into like the US empire is good and our wars have been good, and also rather early on, we're talking like third and fourth grade, decide who is going to be the professional managerial class of these children and who is going to be the worker drones. And when you separate kids that young, the ones who've been pushed aside, who are not the talented and gifted, they're stuck in that we're not really going to educate them to the level that they could ever become the talented and gifted upper management or whatever. And so it's really like a bit of an education to be wage slaves. Like that's a lot of what goes on with our system.
Well, and there was a funny, I posted it on Instagram. I just because it's quite funny and it has to do with our education system. Hold on. American history books are like, slavery was bad, but then Lincoln fixed it. Then segregation was also bad, but Malcolm X didn't need to be so mean about it. MLK went on a big walk and fixed racism.
Yay.
The last racist left killed him, but then he went to jail. The end.
The last racist left.
But like,
Yeah.
I mean, that is our
By the way,
education system. I remember like when we did our segment in US history about like the 20th century, it was like a day. We spent like a day on, I mean, at that point it was like what, like 1998 or something. And we spent a day on 98 years. And you're like, yeah, that's basically it. Racism was a thing, but now it's not. Let's go to lunch. And it's like,
literally, I went to public school, and literally, I remember that every time in history class, we'd spend the first, really, no matter what year it was, it didn't really matter. You know, 6th grade, 8th grade, we'd spend 90% of the year on prior to about 1968 or 1960. Mm-hmm. And then the teacher or whatever, or the school or whatever, would realize, oh shit, we haven't covered the past, 20, 40 years. And so they would, those last like week, they'd be like, so we're going to kind of go fast here. There was a black man spoke.
Vietnam War happened, but we totally won it. We totally won it. We just left.
We went to Vietnam because they were doing some shit, okay? And the next page, and like it was madness. It was like, wait a second, we spent like 2 months on the Civil War, like on lies about the Civil War mostly, but anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many problems, but the reason Elon Musk is ripping up the Department of Education is not because of the problems we've just elucidated. Course. He is ripping up the Department of Education because it is one of these little things that kind of helps people in a public way. So let's scrap it. It's hilarious how wrong both liberals and the right wing are getting what's going on right now. The last thing. The other thing is they keep talking about the money, right? He says it's to save money. None of this, there's no saving money. And if they do, it's going to be given to tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans. America can print as much money as we want, as long as the petrodollar still holds strong. And that's what they do in order to spend $1 trillion a year on military. They print whatever they want. So this save money thing is garbage.
I'm just curious, like how much money are they cutting from police and military?
So I covered it the other day. So far, none. But I covered it the other day that
I am shocked.
I covered it the other day that Trump says he wants to cut the military budget by half.
So I've heard that, but
it's
if I had a dime for every time a man lied to me, I could buy the White House.
Let's not make them up, man. But yeah, he's full of shit, I'm sure. And anyway, I did a whole segment on.
Yeah, we don't need to rehash it. It was more of a rhetorical question because I already
how
know
much
the
has
answer.
been cut so far? 0. Yeah. Energy Department. Hundreds of federal employees tasked with working on the nation's nuclear weapons programs were laid off February 13th. But the move was largely rescinded hours later when basically the White House realized they might need some of those nuclear
because they're the only ones who know how to use the floppy disks that still run our nuclear system.
Oh my God. She's not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Literally floppy disks. There's still some of it is still on floppy disks.
And for those of you who are under the age of 30 and have no idea what a floppy disk is, Google it. And then you tell me that that's the best we can do.
Google it and then laugh heartily.
And cry a little bit too.
Officials with the CDC were told they're losing 1,300 probationary employees. Probationary sounds like, oh, those were the bad ones, right? No, it just means they were there for like less than 2 years is all it means.
Probation has definitely, well, because of the prison state, has a negative ring to it.
And that 1,300 is 1/10 of the agency's workforce. Is everything the CDC does good? No, but there are some positive things it does. It does generally make it less likely that you're going to eat tainted meat. So there are some positives within other negative things. The Department of Homeland Security, the probationary cuts included 130 employees in the U.S., and this is one I support, in the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Fudge the DHS, and I don't want them to have their cybersecurity team. I'm sure their cybersecurity team of DHS is basically just assassinating your rights. So,
sorry, continue.
IRS will lay off thousands of probationary workers in the middle of tax season. I'm a fan of that. I'm all for that. National, of course, with Biden, as with Trump, they're going to divert the IRS's small staff to focus on like middle class and lower class people rather than going after the richest of the rich, which are where you actually should direct the IRS. National Park Service Administration's fired 1,000 newly hired National Park Service employees that maintain parks. The firings were not publicly announced, but were confirmed. They're also, it's kind of confusing because the Park Service also reinstated 5,000 seasonal jobs. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, I covered that the other day, that they have basically shredded the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but it was largely meaningless to begin with. It was a Band-Aid on a banking system that exploits people, is completely predatory, and destroys people's lives all day, every day. And the CFPB succeeded in stopping $5 fees from the banks. Agriculture Department. The new Agriculture Secretary said on February 14th that her agency invited Elon Musk's DOGE team with open arms, and layoffs are forthcoming.
Funny note about that. I saw this in a mutual aid thread that I'm a part of. And this is also like a media literacy moment. NBC News posted an article that says USDA says it accidentally fired officials working on the bird flu and is now trying to rehire them. Accidentally?
And this is like the third article about accidentally hiring people.
How do you accidentally fire? I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, and the way that that's phrased is, of course, to lend cover to the USDA. But I find it interesting that that's
here's how it's happening. They're basically looking for the people they can fire most easily. The people they can fire most easily are these probationary ones, which have only been there for less than 2 years. But guess what? Some of those people who've been there less than 2 years are working on bird flu, or they're working on nuclear safety. So just because they've been there less than 2 years doesn't mean they're not qualified. It just makes them easy for Trump and Musk to fire them.
Yeah. So, would you prefer to die from bird flu or nuclear winter?
If those are the choices, they sound pretty good. I'll take a little column A, a little column B. Foreign aid and development. We've talked a lot about what garbage USAID is, and yet a lot of liberals across this country are crying tears, bitter tears over USAID. We were just helping people around the world. Federal grants and loans. The White House last month paused federal grants and loans. They then rescinded some of the freeze. We covered this at the time. Some of these grants are obviously important to a lot of people. It's a widespread disruption in healthcare research, education programs, other initiatives. Even grants that have been awarded but not spent are supposed to be halted. Wreak a lot of havoc. At the same time, it stopped USAID grants, which Sounds pretty good, most of them. Inspectors General, I'm almost done here. Inspectors General, each of the federal government's largest agencies had its own Inspector General who was supposed to conduct objective audits, prevent fraud, and promote efficiency. Trump fired all 17 of them. Okay, here's the nuance. Why did he fire all 17? Because he does not want them investigating him. It's straight up corruption. However, here's the other side of it. These inspectors general, for the most part, like 90% of the time, are not actually stopping the corruption, fraud, and just straight up extraction of American lives that goes on in our government. They got that job by being part of the system. So this is the same as CFPB. It's like they weren't really doing the job, but why is he firing them? Because he doesn't want them doing the job. Like, that sums it up. Trump told reporters it's a very common thing to do, but yeah, I don't know. Department of Justice, it's normal for politically appointed U.S. attorneys to be replaced, but it's not standard procedure for career prosecutors to be ousted with a change in administrations. So apparently not that uncommon to replace U.S. attorneys. State Department, a large number of senior career diplomats who served in politically appointed leadership positions, as well as lower level positions in the State Department, left their jobs at the demand of the new administration. But what does the State Department do? Wages war around the world. That's basically what it does. When was the last time the State Department helped a country just to help them? Like, not in order to find some way that the U.S. could exploit them or extract resources from them.
Well, and of course, the U.S. could end world hunger and solve like the lack of potable drinking water and all of these things. It could do that like in a day. So if aid was really the goal, if support and humanitarian efforts were really the aim, that shit could happen in less than the time it takes to do this podcast.
Yep. So I hope that helps clarify some of the nuance in this. And it really is, like, if you watch the way people are covering this, it is hair on fire for liberal America. And I'm talking specifically about these DOGE firings. There's other things Trump is doing that are absolutely corrupt, possibly illegal. But it's hair on fire for liberal America. It is jumping up and down for joy in right-wing America. And perhaps there's some middle ground here where it's like, yeah, that was garbage. This is corrupt. This is Elon and Trump being corrupt. And I think we get a mixed bag.
The liberals are freaking out because, again, this is a revealing of the system. And that's why a lot of the DC crowd doesn't like Trump. Not because they have anything really not that they are that against his policies, because again, they prefer to him over Bernie, but because he reveals the system and it makes them look bad. When you pull down the Black Lives Matter facade and the rainbow flag facade, when you pull all that down and you see that the structures of the system are the same with Democrats and Republicans, that doesn't look good for the Democrats. They lose their carrot and all they're left with is the stick. So It doesn't make them look good, and that's why they don't like Trump. They don't really have a problem with his policy, as is evidenced by several points and collaborations between the Democrats and the Republicans, both in closed doors and in open sessions.
Carl's asking saying Trump's doing a lot of illegal stuff and you don't care about it? ? No, that's not what I said. I said he's completely corrupt. A lot of what he's doing is illegal. So I don't know.
The nuance aspect is
loses some people, but
you can know that something is illegal and you can know that something's corrupt, and you can still A, not be shocked by it, and B, contextualize it in the larger corruption of the United States system as a whole.
Also, let's remember everything Hitler did in Germany was legal, because
slavery is still legal in the United States.
Because basically,
by the way,
these horrific human beings that rule these systems, they just change the laws, or they make the law as they go.
Everything that Israel is doing, according to Israel, is legal.
Is legal. As Nixon said in that famous interview,
it's legal
They own the laws. All right, we got to move on. Let's get so we have some more information on these ICE raids that are, speaking of horrible things Trump's doing. So let's get to that.
Okay. Where are you starting? Which one are you starting with?
Same one you're on.
Okay. So this is some good news, and also a call out to community organizations everywhere to do more Know Your Rights trainings, because they are working. So communities are stepping up to counter the ongoing ICE raids, which have been happening across major cities and in the U.S. Thousands of people have already been detained, including those with no criminal record, as if that really matters. Folks might have seen the videos that were passed around where they show people being put in chains to be deported. So communities are really the barrier to ICE being able to do this work. And Trump's border czar even went on CNN and said, Chicago is making it too damn hard for ICE to operate. They've been educated on how to defy ICE.
I love that.
Well, thanks.
And yeah, we've done a lot of segments on how to defy ICE.
So people are getting educated.
How to melt ice?
Okay. Yeah, that's used a lot. Okay. There are lots of resources on social media that are being spread, and I think it's important to note, like, you should also be getting these from vetted organizations, because there are some on social media, I know people will be shocked to hear this, that are BS. So don't trust everything that you read.
Oh, you mean people are putting false rights?
Yeah, not that they're like trying to do anything wrong. I don't know that they're putting anything up there to like be like ha ha ha, but it just might not be information that is actually correct. So basically, a woman in San Diego, for instance, saw Know Your Rights information online, and when ICE showed up at her home, she read her rights off of her phone, checked the warrant.
I love reading the rights off of it.
Hey, called a hotline for assistance and stopped ICE from detaining her family. There are hotlines. There are Know Your Rights trainings that a lot of organizations are doing. If you have one, like I'm getting this information from Day Labor Network, which was shared by Gen Z for Change, or Gen Z for Cambio. And this is, these kind of trainings are even being done by unions. And if you can believe it, unions are actually, a recent Gallup poll showed that unions are more popular than they've been in like 60 years, which is great. We don't have as many of them as we should, but people are understanding that unions are a good thing. And for instance, there was a teachers union, I can't remember where it was, but they actually wrote into their contract that their teachers, their members, will not collaborate with ICE. And ICE actually tried to go into a school to arrest a teacher. I believe this was in Pittsburgh, and they locked down the school. They wouldn't let ICE in, and they locked down the school. So these are things that you can get into a union contract. Unions are good, and unions can be a really powerful force in doing Know Your Rights trainings and things like that. Mutual aid organizations. I mean, you don't have to be any specific kind of organization in order to do these kind of trainings. And I think it's important that we all know them, even people who are so-called documented, because we can share that information and make sure that our neighbors are aware that we have that information and that we'll be allies in this cause.
One of the most important things is just don't open the door. Don't open the door. Well, and just don't fucking do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, and they do think, and there was another post that talks about like the kind of shit that they'll say. They'll be like, they'll say things like, "How are you doing? I'm so sorry to bother you. We need to come in and talk to you. We can't yell through a closed door, ma'am. Can you please open the door?"
Yeah, I love the line. We can't yell through a closed door. That's not how we do business.
Right.
No, we violate your rights. That's how we do business.
And this is stuff that they do all the time, right? Because legally they're allowed to lie to you. So, and the other thing, and this is a small portion of the Know Your Rights training, but most ICE warrants are not signed by a judge, which means that you don't have to open the door. They'll show you a warrant and be like, "Hey, we have a warrant. We need to come in." If that shit is not signed by a judge, you don't have to open the door. So don't. And this goes with cops too. Don't open the door to cops if they knock on your door and say, we really need you to open the door. No.
Yeah.
Show me a signed warrant or just move along because I'm not opening the door to you. And they'll try the same thing, you know, like we really have nothing to worry about. Well, then why are you at my door? Like if there was no big deal, you wouldn't be knocking on my door. Okay. And then there's, of course, like the good cop, bad cop. They will have, some agents will use stern, imposing tones to coerce the family into opening the door, trying to spread fear. Like, hey, if you don't open the door, then fill in the blank again, because they lie.
Eleanor, I'm about to set you off. Red would like to know, why are you helping assist people who are in the country illegally?
You know, Lee, sometimes I don't think that you should feed the trolls.
Okay. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I wasn't really trying to get you angry. I just thought it's an easy question for us to answer. One is the way the ICE is behaving is illegal. 2 is humans can't be illegal. They're just humans. Okay. 3 is nation states are fucking stupid. 4 is that this is racist based. Like, it is not going after everyone. It is going after people who look a certain way.
Well, and if you need someone to show you papers to care about their humanity, then you're not actually a human being. And I would ask you to get the fuck off of our chat.
Yeah, no, I wasn't doing it to feed the trolls. I was doing it because I think it's a good thing for us to show people how the many arguments to respond to that argument. Anyway.
There's they'll say, again, they'll lie. They'll say things, you know, like it's a federal offense for this and that the other thing. I have to take this person to this court. He's gonna be remanded. You know, you ask them for paperwork. They say, I'll get it to you. And then another thing that was said to this woman was when she asked for a warrant, he said, I'm not obligated to show it to anybody, but I have it. This is like some Alex Jones shit. I have the documents. Like, well, then show me.
Or they'll often just wave a piece of paper and say, see, and it's like their, phone bill or something. They just think that you won't check.
And then they'll pull the vampire thing. Like, if you're asking for the warrant once they're already in your house, they'll say, well, I'm already in your home.
Yeah, you let us in.
So you let us in.
You've really let us
in. So it's some really deep psychological shit that they pull on you. So just don't don't feed the trolls. Like, don't listen to them. They know how to work this. That they get trained in how to do this. So just don't. And they really also rely on language barriers. A lot of them, even if they do speak Spanish, they will choose not to, or Arabic or whatever language, they will choose not to hopefully use people's second language skills to their advantage. So these are things to really look out for, and to know that they will use, and to not fall into this trap. Again, why know your rights trainings are so important.
Where would you like to go next?
Paris? Or you mean not literally?
Paris sounds pretty good. Actually, before we get to the next topic, which we got plenty more coming up, I do want to yet again remind everybody that tonight is the premiere of Eleanor singing that. Tonight is the premiere.
Oh, that's creepy as hell, dude.
Well, that's why it grabs people's attention. Of the first episode.
Can we click away?
I think that might be Stephen Miller. The first episode of Unredacted Tonight, the return basically of my TV show Redacted Tonight. This one is independent. That's why I've changed the name. It is not the same company or anything. So completely independent. Unredacted Tonight, first episode ever. It premieres at 7 p.m. Eastern, not noon Pacific, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'm just used to saying noon Pacific.
As what?
The live stream.
Okay. Sorry.
And it is free to watch. So I hope, and you can click, if you go there now or whenever, you can click the little notify thing at the bottom of that image, click notification, and then they'll shoot you a little email as well when it comes on, I think, if that part's not censored, because everything I do is censored. But anyway, I would love for you guys to check it out. I would love for you to share the word, because that's the only way it's going to keep alive. This new
Keep
show.
on keeping on.
Is if you guys make it a point to share it and let people know. So I hope you enjoy it. I do have to apologize that the first episode we had audio issues. So the audio is not 100%. It's, it's 70. And I apologize for that, but it will get better. And we're doing weekly episodes. So check it out, please. All right. Would you rather cover Israel stories next or DEI? I like that you really take time to digest these questions.
Let's do Israel first, because I feel like the DEI one will be more long-winded because there's more to pick apart.
There is a lot to pick apart. All right.
And for folks who are interested in hearing more about what's going on in the West Bank, because you won't hear a damn thing about it on corporate media, I just did a really great interview with Tamara Nasser, who's a journalist.
I'll listen to it tomorrow.
Who does a lot of writing for Electronic Intifada about the West Bank. And you can check out that interview that I did with her over at projectcensored.org. So the Oxfam just came out with this report. We're recording this on February 20th, and they released this report on February 18th. Less than 7% of pre-conflict water levels available to Rafah, which is in the south, and North Gaza, worsening a health catastrophe. So basically, Gaza. Over 1,000 miles of water and sanitation networks have been destroyed. Big ticket repairs of networks urgently needed, but Israel is not letting in that construction equipment. There was a video of them letting in 6 tiny, they looked like toys, tiny little tractors, tiny little bulldozers to deal with the destruction of like basically the entire area. So it's laughable in a very morbid way what Israel is actually allowing that of course goes against the ceasefire, because that's what they do. And some other points about what's going on in Gaza. I mean, and we've covered this before. There's really no way of knowing the extent of how many Palestinians have been killed. We've talked about the Lancet Journal's estimation of more than 180,000, and that was in July of last year.
Yeah, so it's way over that now.
But again, you can't really know the exact number. And of course, every single system has been decimated. The health system, the educational system, as I just said, basic infrastructure of water and sewage. So at least 14,000 people are believed to still be trapped under the rubble. These are, in terms of the destruction of buildings and that kind of thing, 92% of homes have been destroyed, 95% of schools, 79% of mosques, 156 hospitals and clinics, 68% land, and that which hasn't been directly affected is affected because of the network to the ground. 80% plus of commercial facilities. These are the ones that have been either damaged or completely destroyed. 69% of all buildings in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed by the Israeli forces.
90% of homes. I thought it was 90% of buildings had been damaged or destroyed. 69% of all buildings.
Right.
Okay.
Israel has violated the ceasefire 266 times since it went into effect on January 19th. So, no big deal. They've killed at least 132 Palestinians in Gaza since January 19th. There have been 105 aircraft violations, 36 gunfire violations, 29 ground incursions, and 9 instances of bombardment by Israeli occupation forces. And as I already stated, Israel refuses to let in the agreed upon and mandated amount of aid into the concentration camp known as Gaza.
They violated the ceasefire a mere 266 times. Do you think that means it's intentional, or you think 266 accidents?
I just slipped.
Sat on the trigger of their gun or something?
Yeah. So, right, the more than 1,000 miles of water and sanitation networks have been destroyed, and almost all water wells in North Gaza have been destroyed. In Rafah, which again is in the south, over 90% of water wells and reservoirs have been partially or completely damaged. So this is just a small, this is just a sampling of what has been destroyed. And again, people are still trying to figure out the extent of the destruction and the death and horror that really has happened in Gaza. And this is just Gaza, right? So the violence in the West Bank is, I say separate as in it's also an issue, but it's of course not separate in terms of the perpetrator. But that's not, these numbers have nothing to do with what's going on in the West Bank. And if you want to hear more about that, you can listen to my interview with Tamara Nasser, because she really, pulls the veil back and talks about an issue that is getting, again, zero coverage in the US corporate media. And another thing that's getting zero coverage in the corporate media is the fact that there are US soldiers in Gaza right now. Guess whose side they're on?
Does anyone know that? Boots on the ground.
Nearly 100 private mercenaries are overseeing a checkpoint in the middle of Gaza.
Because it doesn't count as the U.S. military as long as you're a private mercenary.
96 American Special Forces veterans are running a checkpoint between the north and south of Gaza to oversee the return of Palestinians to their homes. Now, pray tell me, why would you need dudes with guns to oversee people walking home?
They're getting paid $1,100 a day.
Plus $10,000 in advance.
I actually need to go. I need to sign up for that. That sounds pretty good.
Oh, by North Carolina-based company. Oh, that makes me feel so...
They're all North Carolina-based.
I know, North Carolina's a hell of a hotbed.
It's the anus's armpit of the nation.
Anus's armpit, that's nice. Oh, that's not fair. It's just Charlotte that's the anus's armpit. And so this post is on Code Pink's page, and they give some backstory about, how Blackwater mercenaries and during the Iraq War massacred people and were convicted of atrocities. And so this is really like a continuation of that, these quote unquote special forces. And it allows the US government to say it's not us, it's private contractors. So we're not culpable, as if they'd give a damn if they were, which of course they are. But this is really despicable because of course they're not there to help people get home. They're there as an extension of the Israeli occupying forces.
And these mercenaries are kind of just added to the fact that the US military and US government is helping commit this genocide in every other way. The only thing they aren't doing, at least right now, back when they had their peer there, they were, but at the moment, the only thing they're not doing is having literal US currently serving soldiers in Gaza. These guys are mercenaries, meaning they're ex-soldiers. But other than that, other than not having a US currently serving soldier standing in Gaza, every other aspect you can imagine to help commit this genocide goes on. Sending of bombs, giving intelligence, facilitating AI like Palantir and their AI programs. The special forces and things go into Israel to advise them on how to commit the genocide better. Like every aspect except for boot on the ground, which they did have during their ridiculous peer. That was to give the appearance of doing anything.
Which really would just help facilitate a massacre in a refugee camp.
Yep.
So,
let's see. I had a couple other stories connected to Israel. Real quick, satellite imagery has shown that there are 7 new Israeli army outposts in Syria. So, boy, that sounds a lot like Israel now owns part of Syria, doesn't it? Because Israel now is stealing part of Syria, which was part of their plan all along.
Monkey see, monkey do. If Daddy Uncle Sam does it, then the Israel learned it from them.
And the whole effort to bring down Assad and everything was done with Israel the whole time. It was all part. In fact, they even admitted, this was what, a year and a half ago, that Israel admitted that they were actually, like, they had doctors and things helping Al-Qaeda, like helping to heal Al-Qaeda fighters to fight in Syria. So literally Israeli doctors like working on Al-Qaeda to make sure they stay fit.
There's a paradox. Would you, if as a doctor and you take the oath to do no harm, would you work on like an IDF soldier?
You're reminding me of when, what was it, 100 some doctors in Israel, Israeli doctors said, go ahead and bomb the hospitals in Gaza. They signed an open letter. Does that sound like do no harm? Like, how psychopathic are these people?
Very.
It's unbelievable. The Israeli army has set up at least 7 new military outposts in southern Syria. Satellite imagery published by Haaretz reveals the new military sites were established in names I'm not going to pronounce. They aim to serve as operational hubs for troops. Huh. What is Israel's interest in Syria? Oh, you mean Greater Israel, where they own half of Syria? Yeah, I think that's about it.
Mm.
So for some odd reason, you don't hear a lot about that in U.S. mainstream media about Israel taking over parts of Syria. Also, it has come out that the UAE offered to bribe South Africa to drop their ICC lawsuit on Israel. The UAE offered investment, quote unquote, to withdraw for South Africa to withdraw from suing Israel for genocide at the International Court of Justice. Sorry, ICJ, International Court of Justice. It's good. It's good to see this. It's just nice, common bribery, and they didn't do it. So good for South Africa. They have continued to bring their case of genocide against Israel at the ICJ. So
yes, and it's grown. Others have signed on. Yeah.
Okay.
It also speaks to like the long-standing history of countries in that region not backing the Palestinian cause. And there's more writing about this in the book, The 100 Years War on Palestine, which is amazing and people should read it.
All right, we're going to shift gears. I know, unbelievable to move on from covering Israel because that's like 80% of what I do now. But
again, listen to my interview with Tamara Nasser.
No one can see you raising your hand because it's not on screen. There you go.
Wax on, wax off.
Yes, go listen to that to learn more. But let's get to this beautifully written article about, I don't even know what to call it, the hoax of DEI, the truth of DEI. But
what's behind the really nice facade?
What's behind DEI? And it also, by the way, for those who think we're giving into the Trump, Elon Musk, MAGA world,
just shut up and listen.
Argument of DEI is the greatest evil by the leftist Marxists to take over the racism. If for those of you thinking we're saying that is not what we're saying. Please listen.
You said you might do the quotes at the beginning.
Well, I was trying to get something.
I'm letting Lee do the quotes at the beginning because I found this article and it's mine. So I am going to do the reading.
Can you tell while we work together on this?
But I send Lee stories all the time and I never get to read them. This is my time to shine, God damn it.
You shine all the time. Everybody in the comments let Eleanor know she shines a lot. I did want to read these quotes. It starts off with a couple of quotes. The fundamental question of the revolution is not one of making more commodities available to people, which is so true. I talk a lot about core reality. Like, you can argue people should have more jobs. I understand that. That's their day-to-day reality. You can argue people should not live in relative poverty and they should have enough money to buy the things they want or need. They should have the money to buy avocado toast if they want it. I can argue that as a day-to-day reality and also argue we shouldn't live in this shit reality with these systems where it's like, I need more money for all the garbage consumerism.
We're getting there.
So anyway.
That quote was by Joseph Edwards.
Yes. This one is from Gil Scott Heron, the great poet.
Have his vinyl.
The revolution will not get better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath.
I think that's from The Revolution Will Not Be Televised It's a great
may
piece.
be. That piece and Whitey's on the Moon are two of his best.
I know. Okay, so and this piece, by the way, is on Prism Reports, which they do amazing work, and this piece is by William C. Anderson, who all of his pieces on Prism are really good.
Titled DEI and the Limits of Multicultural Consumerism.
Yeah. So he starts off talking about the murder of George Floyd and how years of rage surrounding regular police killings in the US turned into a spring of rebellions and protests across the globe. People might have been a part of them. It was hard to ignore. Black Lives Matter signs, or indeed, if you're the Mayor Bowser of Washington, D.C., you painted that on a street outside the White House, on 16th Street outside the White House. She had painted Black Lives Matter because that's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, stop your protests and we'll name
we'll
the street.
We'll paint it on the street.
We will proudly get rid of your protests with a street sign.
So that Bezos, when he flies over in his helicopter, can see that it says Black Lives Matter on the street. And he that'll matter in terms of the people he exploits. Black Lives Matter signs and murals began to appear in many places. Liberal politicians donned kente cloth. That was a special moment. And corporations started implementing more policies around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The recent backlash has exposed the response as a counterinsurgent tactic to pacify uprisings. That's what Democrats do. They put on kente cloth and they tell you they care about you.
Keep going. I gotta look up the photo of the kente.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing.
No, you gotta keep going.
It's so
I gotta find
it. The corporate abandonment. I gotta get the mic though. The corporate abandonment of internal DEI policies has led to consumer boycotts and resentment, with people recognizing their identities as a rejected marketing ploy. However, the more profound political question is whether we want inclusion or autonomy. Do you want politicians who dress like this and continue to perpetuate white supremacist policies? Or do you want to do away with the white supremacist policies?
It can't be white supremacist policies if it's a bunch of white people with kente cloth on.
The ease with which corporations shredded their DEI policies is why it's important to note the fundamental differences between fighting to be included and fighting for autonomy and self-determination. In other words, if the DEI policies were doing so much, before you demand a seat at the table, you should first ask if it's a table worth being at in the first place. Let's not pull up chairs at a dinner party that needs to be destroyed. But unfortunately, that's the standard response for a public hypnotized into thinking that they have a collective stake in capitalism.
And that line also speaks to putting all, when Biden was in office, putting all, it's black people at the front of the press corps. It's black people are the ones voting to continue the genocide in Gaza at the UN. And it doesn't mean I'm opposed to black people or black women doing those things. It means it doesn't matter if you put a black person in that position if they are going to perpetrate the same goddamn policies of a white supremacist imperial death squad.
No, it's like Cornel West called Obama the black poster child for Wall Street. I mean, and it's the same thing with, people being like, we need a female president. I'm like, we just need a good president. The quality of woman matters because the quality of president matters, right? Same thing with whatever identity you want to throw into that. Black, Hispanic, whatever. It doesn't matter if they have this cultural background, if they're just going to perpetuate the same policies of U.S. empire at home and away. He continues, the oversimplification and sanitation of the civil rights movement also have much to do with this. State-sponsored historical narratives, like I shared that tweet about how you learn history, have reduced multi-pronged struggles to nothing more than a fight to melt and integrate. It shrinks it to a moment in time where Black people are portrayed as entirely satiated by an unguaranteed right to vote, more institutional racial representation, and of course, the ability to spend money equally among white consumers. In its heyday, the integrationist civil rights movement cast an aura which encompassed nearly the whole of Black population. But the bourgeoisie was the primary beneficiary of that movement. And they tried to basically cast Black capitalism as a counter to Black power, whereas Black power believed in fighting and demanding with no, what's the word? No compromise, the human rights that are afforded to white people, particularly white men in this country. And the system basically tried to say, well, but if you can buy the same things as white people, that's the same thing, right?
That's freedom.
That's good enough.
Yeah. Can I just read
Yes.
this one part? I found this so interesting.
Yes.
That white women have historically been among the primary beneficiaries of affirmative action policies.
Very true.
While also being the policy's most outspoken critics. Similarly, data reveals that white people occupy more executive level DEI roles compared to other racial groups. There's more white people in DEI roles. An analysis of chief diversity officer positions showed that white candidates are hired for the lion's share of those roles. It's incredible.
Awkward.
More white people are hired for DEI than Jesus.
Right. And again, this speaks to the facade.
Yeah.
And this is why it's one of those moments, just like we were talking about earlier, that this was not working anyway. DEI was not doing the thing that it said it was supposed to be doing, right? So doing away with it while the liberals clutch their pearls and, cry alligator tears. How is this addressing the actual root causes of systemic racism? How is this actually addressing the inequality? It wasn't.
And I think we wouldn't have to retitle this show, Two Things Can Be True. Exactly everything you just said. And why are Trump and Musk and the others shredding DEI programs? Because they are racist. I mean,
right, because they think that
Trump
they're doing
Musk.
A thing.
They are racist,
yes.
And they want to stop anything that might help Black or brown people or women. And so they're more than happy to shred DEI. It's also a nice scapegoat to say, here's why your lives suck, white people across America, because of DEI. So that can be true. That's why they're shredding these. And also everything Eleanor just said about they weren't doing the thing that they were intended to do anyway.
Right. And what he's saying in this article.
Yeah.
He continues, much like U.S. politics, shopping itself is an illusion of choice. Just like simply choosing another candidate isn't the answer to disempowering political arenas, neither is merely selecting another place to shop. So the idea that Black people were allowed to shop at white stores and things like that, that doesn't mean equality. The fact that you can engage in the destructive system of capitalism is not a win. Just like, trans people in the military, it was not a win for trans people. And we can say that and also realize that the attack on trans people has escalated and is very, very horrifying and disgusting. And also recognize that trans people in the military was not about trans equality or equal rights for trans folks. Radical self-management politics call for people to take control collectively. We can't hope for the problem creators to solve our problems. Whether it's the general strike, tax boycotts, industrial sabotage, there's a rich history of how to shut things down when they're working against us, which they are. Self-management is what the revolution is all about. The struggle being waged by the masses of people to gain direct control over all areas of life, the absence of which is responsible for their poverty, oppression, and alienation. This struggle is the struggle for self-management. We're not talking about deferring to existing authorities or their exploitative tools in a quest to receive better treatment. We're also not talking about running toward co-optable means or methods, the Democrats. Instead, this is about what someone like Black anarchist Lorenzo Comboya Ervin might express as a key component of building autonomy, ungovernability. This is the work to decrease dependence, not move it elsewhere and call it a win. We can't keep running to seek out safety and political representation. the nation state, corporations, and capital instead of ourselves. Boom, mic drop. God damn it, this is so good. And this is so important because it speaks to those, like, he doesn't use the words mutual aid, but this is like, he's talking about mutualism. He's talking about the fact that we have what we need to take care of each other, because guess what? This country only runs because of us. And that's why general strikes are so scary. That's why you have Biden coming out and basically saying it's illegal to go on strike. Why? Because he's deathly afraid of what would happen if people did go on a general strike. The entire structure rests on our complicity. And I'm not saying that to say like that, you know, it's our fault that all of these things are happening. I'm not trying to do that blame game. I'm more so trying to point out that it is important that we recognize our power, and that the power is not actually in the Democratic Party. It's not in the Republican Party. It's not in the halls of Congress. We give that power away. And we keep doing it in the hopes that someday, at some point, they will see our worth as human beings, and they will give us what we need to survive. They'll give us the healthcare and the education, right. And they'll see that Black people are equal to whites, and they'll see that deporting people because they walked across an imaginary line is dumb as shit. But they're not going to wake up and realize that. The only things that have ever caused change in this system are because people make it untenable to do anything but what we demand.
Yeah.
And that is just the truth of it. And anybody who looks at history can see that. So I'm not saying anything new, and he's really not really saying anything new either. He's just putting it in such a wonderfully poetic way that I just had to share it with y'all. But it's so important to recognize this, because I think it does two things. Not only does it shift how we organize, but it inspires us, right? I think a lot of times people feel like they're powerless. And so they freeze, oh, I can't do anything about it anyway, so why engage? But this reminds us that we do have that power. All we have to do is grab it and do something with it.
And believe it or not, maybe it's actually activating a lot of people across this country to have the like bullshit things that were keeping people calm, like DEI was keeping liberals to think that somehow society is progressing other than just around the fringe. Having that ripped up, maybe it's activating people. Maybe they're going, oh shit, things are not as wonderful and peachy and great about the society as I thought they were, because a Black woman is the press secretary. Like maybe people are becoming activated, but like you said, it's unless you're going to interrupt business as usual and make it untenable to continue down this path, they're going to keep going.
As a Armenian human rights lawyer was telling me in an interview, he said, you can't wait for a genocider to stop. You have to stop them. And the same is said for those who uphold genociders. And so we have to stop what's going on. We can't expect the Democrats to do it for us, or their kente cloth, or spray, painting Black Lives Matter on a damn street.
Their kente cloth. Okay, folks, we're going to wrap up, but I got to say it again tonight. Sorry.
Just before you
do not got to say it again.
Because I know that you're about to play a thing. So I just want to say that along with the Project Censored,
I was going to get to that.
I have another episode of Radical Nuance that's out.
I was going to get to that.
Wherever you listen to podcasts, also available at patreon.com/artkillingapathy. Thank you.
I was going to get to
I thought you were going to play a thing, and then I was just going to scoot. So I wanted to make sure that I got that in before we ended.
No, I was going to say.
But now you don't have to.
Tell us about all your stuff. Before everyone heads out, I just want to let you know tonight's the night premiere of Unredacted Tonight, episode 1, first ever. It's been 3 years. Okay. It's been 3 years since Redacted Tonight, and now I hope you will feel that it's at least partially back. And whether this show continues is really up to you guys as to whether you like it and whether you support it. Anyway, it's you can listen watch on youtube.com/@realleecamp or rumble.com/leecamp, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Go over there right now and click turn the notification on so you get a little email. And we do these live streams. Well, sorry, I do these live streams Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And Eleanor joins on Thursdays. The podcast is called Common Censored. And
this podcast is called Common Censored. And I have a radio show that I co-host called Project Censored. And the podcast I just mentioned is called Radical Nuance. Thanks, y'all, for hanging out with us.
Thank you. See you next week, or see you at the premiere tonight. Later.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.